The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, turning the outskirts of New Haven Colony into a muddy wasteland. The trade caravans stopped coming, the sky freighters hovered elsewhere, and those who lived in the broken outskirts had little choice but to fend for themselves. I had just finished patching the hole in my roof when I heard it, the faintest knock on my cabin's door. Not bold, not demanding, but timid, like someone afraid they'd be chased away. When I opened the door, she was there. Child. Thin, trembling, her skin pale and faintly luminous beneath the storm's gray light. Her large black eyes blinked up at me, and her hands clutched an empty metal tin. Her clothes were tattered rags, clearly not human stitching. "Hungry," she whispered. Her voice like music played through broken glass. I knew what she was. Everyone in the colony did. One of the displaced alien families from the northern crashes. Scavengers barely tolerated by the local council. People muttered about theft, about curses, about them being dangerous. But I couldn't ignore the way she swayed on her feet. "Come inside," I said. My voice cracked because, truth be told, I didn't have much food myself. I gave her a piece of bread, some stew I'd been saving. She devoured it quickly, like a starved animal. Yet when her eyes met mine again, they weren't feral. They were soft, grateful. "Thank you, human," she whispered. Then, as quickly as she came, she darted back into the storm. The next evening, I was mending an old lantern when I heard the sound again. Not a timid knock this time, but the heavy press of footsteps outside. When I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. The child was back, but she wasn't alone. Beside her stood a woman. Taller than me, her presence commanding yet fragile. She was draped in ragged cloth that couldn't hide her noble bearing. Her eyes were the same deep black as her daughter's, but flecked with silver, like stars trapped in midnight. "This is the human," the child said proudly, tugging her mother's hand. "The one who fed me." The woman inclined her head. "My daughter speaks true. She came to me with warmth in her body for the first time in weeks. You gave that to her." Her voice was low, melodic, but filled with something else, dignity held together by thin thread. I fumbled, unsure what to say. It was nothing. She needed food. "To us it was not nothing," the woman replied. "It was life." She studied me in silence, her gaze so piercing I almost stepped back. Then she said words that made my chest tighten. "My daughter believes you should be her father." The silence that followed was heavier than any storm. I blinked at her, certain I had misheard. "Her what?" The child's face lit up with determination. "You were kind when no one else was. You didn't turn me away. That means you'd protect us. That means you could be family." I tried to laugh it off. "I'm just a farmer. I have barely enough for myself." The mother placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Do not shame her hope, human. She has lived too long with none. But, if you refuse, we will not trouble you further." I should have said no. Life was already hard enough. The colony distrusted their kind, and taking them in would mean whispers, maybe worse. But when the girl looked up at me, her eyes shining with something more powerful than hunger, I couldn't turn away. "Stay," I said quietly. "Both of you. At least until the storm passes." The storm lasted a week. During that time I learned much. The mother's name was Sira. She was once part of a royal line on her homeworld before war and betrayal scattered her people. She carried her shame like a shroud, hiding her face when she thought I wasn't looking. But she worked beside me without complaint, tending the fire, patching leaks, teaching her daughter how to be useful instead of a burden. The child Lyra laughed more each day. She filled the cabin with a warmth I hadn't felt in years, not since losing my own family to the plague that swept through the colony long ago. Her small hands would cling to mine when we walked the muddy path outside, and each time, I felt the ice in my chest thaw a little more. And Sira, her dignity slowly softened into trust. She told me stories of stars I'd never seen, of songs her people sang beneath alien skies. Sometimes when the fire burned low, I caught her watching me. Her expression caught between caution and longing. When the storm ended, I expected them to leave. Instead, Sira stood before me, her hands trembling slightly though her voice was steady. My daughter still wishes you to be her father. I will not force it. But I ask you now, not as royalty, not as exile, but as a woman who has seen your heart. Will you take us? Not as charity, but as family. Her words pierced deeper than any blade. I thought of the empty house I had lived in, the silence that had gnawed at me, the hopelessness I carried each day. And then I thought of Lyra's laughter, Sira's songs, the warmth that had returned to my life in only a week. I stepped closer, lifting her chin so her eyes met mine. I fed your child because no one deserves to starve. But I will keep you both because no one deserves to be alone. Sira. Be my family. Her breath caught, and for the first time I saw her smile. Lyra clapped her hands and shouted with joy, hugging us both tightly. The storm had passed outside, but inside my heart, a new dawn had begun. The days that followed were not easy. Whispers spread quickly in the colony. Some sneered when they saw me walking with Sira and Lyra, muttering about alien strays and how I'd lost my mind. But I found I no longer cared. Their stares had no weight compared to the joy of hearing Lyra's laughter echo through the fields or watching Sira hum softly as she worked beside me. One evening, after tending the last of the crops, I sat with Sira outside the cabin. The sky was painted with fading orange and violet streaks, and the air carried the scent of wet earth after rain. She sat close, her daughter already asleep inside. You have given us more than shelter, she whispered. You gave us dignity again. You gave Lyra hope. Her silver-flecked eyes shimmered. And though I feared asking it, you gave me a place at your side. I reached for her hand, rough with work yet warm in my grasp. You gave me back my life, Sira. I thought it ended long ago. But now, it feels like it's just beginning. She leaned into me then, no longer a queen without a throne, no longer an exile, just a woman tired but free at last to choose. And she chose me. From that night on, the cabin was never silent again. Lyra's laughter grew bolder, Sira's songs filled the dark, and my once empty home became a place of light. I had fed a starving child with a scrap of bread. In return, I had been given a family, a love fiercer than any storm, and a future I never dared to dream. And as the stars came out above us, I knew with certainty, this was where I belonged.